Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, depending on where you are, people of God. I thank you for joining me today for the channel Amani.Upendo. I pray that the Lord has been keeping you in His perfect peace and love. As the name says, Amani in Swahili means peace, and Upendo means love. All right. Now, I just wanted to, touch base with you and give you a word of encouragement and insight. The topic of discussion today is boundaries as a Christian. Again, this is my take on boundaries as a Christian. If you have a different opinion, reach out, let me know. I'd be more than happy to, hear your opinion and, converse with you respectfully on that. So moving forward, as a Christian, especially today, there are so many things, so many distractions in our culture and in our society right now that, kind of put Christians in a box and make Christians feel almost guilty for having boundaries. When it comes to, personal or self-development, you can imagine what the importance of boundaries really play in your role, right? You can have boundaries with how you dress and what you eat. You can have boundaries with who you decide to spend your time with, right? Um, as a Christian, though, we are faced with this dilemma because we're taught to be inclusive. We're taught the importance of being inclusive, and I mean, rightly so, right? We come from different genders and, varying races. And so, of course, it is important that we are, inclusive, right? And we know the importance of valuing people from different backgrounds, of course. And I definitely believe in that as well. But I guess you would say there's some sort of a limitation because as a Christian, you know, what ends up happening is we are then forced to include everyone and everything. And if we decide that we don't, then we're labeled as racist, discriminatory, or prejudice, when in reality, all we've done is set a boundary. The way I see it, and I think most would agree, there are certain people that they don't even eat meat. There are certain people that have set that boundary for themselves, that religious boundary, they don't eat meat. Some people dress a specific way, again, based on their religion or gender identity, for example. And they've set boundaries for themselves. And so, as a Christian, if you set a boundary and say, I've decided that I am going to stay, away from sex before marriage. If I, as a Christian, decide that I only want to have friends that are Christians around me, as a Christian, if I get up and I decide, that I would prefer not to be, seated next to somebody that is, gender, confused or, they're non-binary. I think as a Christian, you definitely have a right. The Bible tells us not to be conformed, right? But transformed, not by the world, but by the Word and through the Holy Spirit. And so, my encouragement for you today is to really hold fast to your boundaries because you have a right to. Obviously, keeping everything respectful, you have a right as a Christian to say, I don't want to engage in specific behaviors and be around specific people for, you know, as for myself. As an example, I would say, think of Samson and Delilah. Um, you know, had Samson held fast to his boundaries, when Delilah came around, although he did care for her, he would have separated himself from her because he would have been able to pick up on the fact that Delilah was not somebody that was really aligned with his, Nazarite values. He wasn't necessarily living a perfect life, but the point is to have people that would push you in the right direction when you're off, rather than shoving you in the complete opposite direction when they notice that you're off. You want people that will encourage you to do the right thing with regards, obviously morally and everything else, but also with regards to your religious beliefs. So Samson is a good example of that, and having those boundaries set. And what can happen when you don't have those boundaries? It can be detrimental to your well being, your wellness, and even your salvation. It's fair to say that you want people in and around your life that care about your salvation and your soul. And if you feel that, you know, those people, that circumstance is not, in alignment with the well-being for even your soul, I think even God would be proud of you if you said, you know what, God, I'm not going to conform. And I'm going to put up this boundary as a Christian and say, I'm going to abstain from this. I'm going to, put up a boundary to not have specific friends, put up a boundary, you know, to not engage in certain behaviors. I mean, another example would be the fact that we are in a pandemic. Imagine if you went, into the store or something, anywhere today. It's 2022. And somebody comes in the line behind you and they're coughing. They don't have their mask on. Just those types of behaviors. I mean, how would you respond? Are you just going to stand there, as an ice cream Christian and say, well, I have to forgive and forget them, right? In the COVID era? Or are you going to say, are you going to turn around and say, excuse me to the person and ask them to kindly step aside, get a mask, or anything? Have any kind of reaction? Of course you would. And I think that's the same type of like boundary and defense that we should have built up when it comes to our own souls and our salvation, because at the end of the day, nobody else is looking out for your salvation. And to be honest, if somebody, for example, with the COVID example, if they're coming around you coughing and this and that, even if they have a pre-existing condition, you know, they're giving you a clear, message that they don't care about your health. They don't care. So what does that say to you? You need to start looking out for your well-being and be concerned about your wellness. And I would encourage you to do that. Not just, from a personal standpoint, but it's biblical. It's a biblical stance. And my encouragement for you for today, for this message, is to really stand firm on those boundaries as a Christian. Do not allow the world, do not allow circumstances to intimidate you and manipulate you. All right? Stay strong, hold fast to those boundaries. Again, it is biblical, it's not just my opinion. If you have any, comments, if you'd like to add anything, definitely stay connected. I thank you for listening in this evening, and above all, stay blessed.